Teaching Literacy with Students with Dual and Multiple Exceptionalities, presented by Rosemary Babcock. Let's face it, teaching literacy is challenging. There are many factors to consider, and each student is unique and has individual needs. Students who are exceptional pose an extra layer of challenge to teachers as they plan for differentiation, instruction, and assessments. Add on top of that another exceptionality, and you get a dual exceptional student posing a twice exceptional challenge. Some students might even have more than two exceptionalities, making them eligible for the label multiple exceptional. What is exceptionality? When people talk about an exceptionality, they're usually talking about disabilities such as dyslexia, dysgraphia, autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or other physical, behavioral, communicative, or intellectual disorders. However, being gifted is also an exceptionality. That is why students who are gifted and also have some type of disability are considered to be twice exceptional. They are often referred to as 2E learners. Students who are gifted and have one or more exceptionalities are referred to as students with DMEs, or students with dual and multiple exceptionalities. It is believed that Leonardo da Vinci, Helen Keller, Beethoven, Nikola Tesla, Charles Darwin, Wolfgang Mozart, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and Albert Einstein all were twice exceptional because they were highly gifted but also had a disability. Students who are dual or multiple exceptional have the potential to also make great contributions to our world. We only need to support them and help them flourish. In the title of this paper, Teaching Literacy with Students, I purposely used the word with because when you are working with gifted students, oftentimes you are learning alongside them. We learn with them because teaching students with multiple exceptionalities require unique, personalized approaches, methods, and techniques. There isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to teaching students with DME. But once you get to know each student of your gifted students, you can have a better idea of how to meet their needs. The reason I chose this topic may have already become apparent to you. My son has multiple exceptionalities. Since students with DME are people and not their disabilities, let me introduce you to my son, Matteo. Matteo is a brilliant 13-year-old who is currently completing his 8th grade studies by the way of virtual learning. He is highly intelligent, very creative, and quite quirky. He enjoys math, logic games, and humorous parodies like that of Weird Al Yankovic. He also has an affinity for Super Mario or anything Nintendo. Just this evening, for leisure, he was trying out a new software program that he had read about that lets him take music videos from YouTube and convert them into editable musical tones. He was altering video game music by changing musical variables within the software. Needless to say, he is a quick learner and needs to be challenged at a suitable level to meet both his needs of giftedness and his inadequacies. Matteo was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome when he was in 3rd grade. Asperger's is a conditioning of high-functioning autism. He was also diagnosed with ADHD. For these reasons, he lacks social skills, is easily distracted, and is hypersensitive to noise and disorder. While his disabilities can hamper his competence, Matteo is a highly capable child with great potential. He was recently assessed by the school district to find his IQ is 132, placing him in the 98th percentile nationally for his age group. Even with such a high IQ, Matteo still holds his pencil in a finger-wrap grasp, which limits his ability to write quickly and effortlessly. With the right support, however, Matteo can reach his full potential and make great strides to reaching his future goals. There is still much research to be done to know the true prevalence of 2E learners and students with DME. It is estimated that approximately 2 to 5% of students are categorically students with DME. While that is a small percentage, an even smaller number of students are known to be gifted and have a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, like Matteo. Many of these students are being overlooked in schools because either their disability masks their giftedness or their giftedness masks their disability. Sometimes they are even misdiagnosed. In 2004, the Individuals with Disabilities Act was rewritten to recognize twice exceptionality and as a result, it was only then that they were provided the same rights and protections as other students with disabilities, including the right to a free and appropriate education. In short, not only do students with dual and multiple exceptionalities have the right to be accommodated, but it is the law that teachers in schools do their best to provide an appropriate education in relation to those students' needs. Identifying students with dual and multiple exceptionalities is only the first step in getting the help these students need. Teachers are very important to the identification process. To assist teachers, I have provided the link to a checklist in the resource section that teachers can use to help them determine if they should recommend a student for evaluation. It is titled Checklist for Recognizing Twice Exceptional Children. Even with response to intervention techniques, students with dual and multiple exceptionalities can be overlooked or missed. Experts say the best marker for identifying these students is the characteristic of inconsistent test and performance results. Of course, this should accompany a few other characteristics associated with students with dual and multiple exceptionality profiles, such as one or more of the following: talent, extraordinary abilities, high IQ, poor social skills, high impulsivity, extreme curiosity, unevenly developed abilities, or processing deficits. I included this graphic so that you can get a better idea of the contradicting characteristics that exist among students with dual and multiple exceptionalities. This representation in particular exhibits the strengths and weaknesses of gifted students who are also diagnosed as having autism spectrum disorder, just like Matteo. It provides a visual display of students' abilities and emphasizes the significant differences in the cognitive, academic, and adaptive functioning skills of twice exceptional students with autism spectrum disorder. Low on the scale is socialization skills, and high on the scale is cognitive reasoning. The National Association for Gifted Children states the following on their website regarding twice exceptional children. Twice exceptional children often find difficulty in the school environment, where organization, participation, and long-term planning play a role. They can be highly creative, verbal, imaginative, curious, with strong problem-solving ability, and a wide range of interests or a single all-consuming expertise. However, at school, they may have difficulty keeping up with course rigor, volume, and demands, resulting in inconsistent academic performance, frustration, difficulties with written expression, and labels such as lazy, unmotivated, and underachiever. All this may hinder the excitement for school and be detrimental to their self-efficacy, self-confidence, and motivation. One common assessment for identifying dual and multiple exceptionalities is the Wechsler Intelligence Scales for Children. Just so you can see what the results of a WISC assessment looks like, I have included a portion of Matteo's score report. Here you can see that Matteo had no areas of weakness on his cognitive testing. All of his scores were well above average, with the exception of processing speed, which was still in the average range, which you will see on the next slide where the rest of the scores are. To understand the percentile rankings, a score of the 50th percentile and up to the 70th percentile in some areas would be considered average. As you can see, Matteo's scores were low, even well below average, in areas involving working memory, processing speed, and naming speed. Once identified, how do we best meet the needs of students with dual and multiple exceptionalities? Simply put, by accommodating. Accommodating, however, can mean a variety of things. It can include changes to environment, instruction, or assessment, or it can refer to providing supports, dual differentiation, or specialized programming. There are three main ways in which students with dual and multiple exceptionalities receive services: resource room, cluster room, or regular classroom. Since researchers are still learning about dual and multiple exceptionalities, guidelines and practices on how to best teach literacy to these students can be hard to find. Research is ongoing, and therefore the best advice for helping these students is work up their talents and fill in their gaps. One recurring recommendation by professionals is to first provide instruction that capitalizes on the student's strengths and then provide instruction that addresses their needs. In order to do that, of course, we need to be able to identify each student's strengths in addition to their needs. You may be wondering what else you can do as an educator to manage the strengths and needs of students with dual and multiple exceptionalities. Indeed, many strategies currently being used to help these students are borrowed from already known strategies. For instance, considering the student's demographics and interests when designing lessons is borrowed from the concepts of cultural awareness and the student-centered learning approach. Students who are dual and multiple exceptional will need more than the average curriculum. They will need a curriculum that fits their special needs. That's not to say that literacy teachers have to throw out their entire toolbox and all of their activities. Instead, they should differentiate curriculum by making changes to the process and content of their lessons as appropriate. Content may need to be compacted so as to remove any already mastered knowledge and skills, and instead focus on what can build upon the student's talents and fill in any gaps or deficits. Gifted children, 2E learners, and students with dual and multiple exceptionalities will still need instruction to fill in those academic gaps. They will still need instruction in advanced, or sometimes less advanced, reading and writing. When I completed the upper level spelling inventory feature guide for Matteo, he spelled 26 out of 31 words correctly and was identified to be in the late derivational relations stage. That stage is the part of the derivational relation stage in which students can spell most new academic words correctly when first encountering them, but confuse assimilated prefixes as well as the suffixes able, ibble, ant and int, and ants and ints. Even though Matteo has a high IQ, he still had some gaps in affixes, as well as some in the areas of reduced vowels and unaccented syllables and assimilated prefixes. In the article, What It Means to Teach Gifted Learners Well, Carol Tomlinson describes what is considered good instruction for gifted learners. She says the 4 things needed for good instruction for gifted learners are a good curriculum, instructional pace that matches students' learning pace, possibly by the use of acceleration, content, processes, and products that are more difficult and sophisticated, the proper balance of challenge and remediation. She goes further to relate what would be inappropriate instruction for gifted learners, and they are instruction that has students repeat knowledge and skills that they've already mastered, or work that has students repeat the same skills only at a faster pace, work that is used to fill time and or has nothing to do with learning new content, instruction that asks the student to be the peer tutor too often, and assigned enrichment that does not match the goal of fine-tuning talents that does not bridge the divide between what the student does or does not know and cannot do. There are 5 main components of a gifted reading program: acceleration, assessment, challenging literature, discussion, grouping, and enrichment. Traditional reading programs only cover a variety of reading, such as critical, creative, and inquiry. But a gifted reading program would cover many more components. Some schools have adopted the school-wide enrichment model reading framework, which aims to provide enrichment in phases. As you can see here, Phase 1 involves the exposure to high-quality text through read-alouds, followed by higher-order thinking questioning. Phase 2 teaches reading strategies and offers one-to-one conferences. And Phase 3 introduces text and activities that include student choice and interests. It also initiates creative writing. Not all students with dual and multiple exceptionalities are proficient in literacy, which is why every student will need to be assessed. Matteo, however, has superior language skills. Therefore, my suggestions for teaching literacy will be suggestions that relate more to what can benefit Matteo. These suggestions may work for most students with dual and multiple exceptionalities, but not all. Since literacy is about reading and writing, the list of things teachers can do to enhance literacy has been separated into 2, one for reading and one for writing. To enhance reading capabilities for students with dual and multiple exceptionalities, teachers can select books and topics for reading materials related to interests, encourage the trying of new genres, allow for movement while working or reading, and make personal connections to text. To enhance the writing capabilities of students with dual and multiple exceptionalities, teachers can do many things, such as work on the fine motor skills, allow students to write in cursive, use assistive technologies such as computers, electronic spellers, or dictation devices, reduce tasks that involve immaterial writing activities, include assignments that allow students to write about their interests, use verbal rehearsal, use enlarged writing templates and outlines, offer a variety of writing utensils with varying grips, reduce note-taking, allow extra time, and have pre-writing and post-writing conferences. While students with dual and multiple exceptionalities are uncommon, they could make up to 10% of the school-age population. Currently, research shows the known prevalence to be about 2 to 5%, but since up to 7% of those have not been identified, there is plenty of untapped, unrealized potential out there just waiting to be recognized and fostered. Teachers play a major role in finding these students and accommodating their needs. We are often taught to not judge a book by its cover, and the same goes for identifying gifted and disabled children. We must rely on our tools and knowledge to find these students so that we can best meet their needs. Sometimes just learning what the problem is can help find the solution. This was the situation with my son and I. As a first-time mother, I had no idea that my son was exhibiting characteristic behaviors of a child with disabilities. Even after all of my struggles with my son when he was younger, he wasn't identified and diagnosed until he was in 3rd grade. It goes without saying, if the right people were paying attention, his diagnosis may have been discovered sooner, and he might have received more support sooner in life. If I hadn't pushed the school to evaluate my son for special education, it is possible he could have continued for years, slipping through the educational cracks. As a mother and educator, I must advise teachers to pay attention to their students. Take notice and notes when you observe atypical behaviors, and don't hesitate to have a student evaluated if you feel they could be gifted and/or have a disability. You never know when your next student is your next Einstein. Don't forget to click this link to get your own copy of a checklist you can use to help you determine if one of your students is twice exceptional. It is not a validated instrument, but it is a tool that can be used to help you identify. It is not a tool to help you diagnose. Remember to always follow the proper channels as appropriate for your school and state.